So anyway, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. For those of you that don't know, I host the pre- and post-game shows for the White. I'm sorry, I'm going to be in your grill. For the White Sox on the Score, and we have at least one intern here. Somebody else? You two? No? Oh, you were just in here.
Jim's just an avid listener.
Do you call me?
No, I never call.
Okay.
Because
if you do, we need to have a talk.
Don't call.
No, but I do appreciate you guys having me out here. And so I know Bill wanted me to tell you a little bit about me and how I got to where I am. I went to Illinois State University, graduated there in 1998. No, I'm sorry, 99. And then I stayed for another couple of years to do grad school because one thing I will tell you is, and this is, I think, a pretty good bit of advice, it's okay if you start a little bit late. I feel like I started a little bit late because I went through all of the radio stuff, I did all the TV stuff in college, and I was getting to that point my senior year where they kept telling me, they told all of us, be prepared that you're going to get a job that you may not like right away. You might have to move somewhere that sucks, and you're going to have to deal with that for a couple of years. And then maybe you get to move on to a job somewhere in a better market, better job, better paying, better hours. And for me as a senior, for some reason I didn't know that that's a sacrifice I wanted to make. So I decided to stay, and I went to grad school for a couple more years. I did some radio work while I was there. I worked for a station, WJBC, which is in Bloomington. It's 1230. It's an AM station. And I did news on weekends. And I don't know if you've ever been to a town like Bloomington. How many of you are from not Chicago? Everybody here, where are you guys from?
San Diego.
Oh, well, that's a big town.
Well, it's not from Chicago, as in I'm from Wilmington, so halfway
Well, that's
to Bloomington.
okay. I would still consider it more Chicago. But in a small town, the radio there, they are very interested in not important things. So, I did that for a couple of years, and you get kind of used to it. I remember one time I got a phone call from a lady on a weekend. I was working the news desk. I got a phone call from her, and she said, excuse me, do you know what the latest mattress store is open in the town of Bloomington? And I said, well, ma'am, we're not a mattress store. I don't really know. She's like, well, yeah, I figured you would know. Those are the kinds of phone calls we got. Somebody, and this is, I swear to God this happened, somebody else called, another woman, she was elderly, and she said, has anybody called the station looking for a turtle because I was driving down one of the country roads, I forgot the name of the road, and I found one. So if anybody is missing a turtle, I have it. So small town's a very different kind of animal. But while I was there, I kind of realized that, this is still something I can do, but I wasn't 100% on it. So what I did was I went home. I'm from St. Louis, or at least from Southern Illinois, and I lived there for my entire life, and I went back home right after graduation. And I worked for a sports agent, a guy that had NFL players. He had about 70, 75 players in the NFL. And it was close. It was in sports. It wasn't exactly what I thought that I was going to do. But I realized after about a year of doing it that it is not something I liked. I don't like having to rely on athletes. I didn't like having to, yes, Orlando Pace is going to be here at 12, I promise, and then he's not there. And then you have to make excuses for them. I didn't really like all of that. Plus, I didn't like dealing with companies, too. It's not my kind of thing. So I had some stuff from college. I had a couple of tapes. I had some audio. None of it was really any good. It's probably not any good now, but it really wasn't good then. So I still had a friend that went to ISU, and I went down one weekend, and I said, hey, I need to borrow the studio, and so I faked a couple of things, which is actually kind of common. I've found that a lot of people will, if they don't like the tape they have, they'll make something up. And really, I don't think that people that hire, I think they just want to know how you sound. They want to know what kind of job you do. It doesn't necessarily mean that you have to have had a great job at some great station. They will be happy to take you if you are good at what you're doing. So I did that, and I sent a tape up to the Score. It just so happened that they needed somebody right at the time that I sent a tape up. And that's another thing you will find is that it does kind of work like that. So if you are, if you're applying for jobs when you're finished here, and you don't get bites right away, it's not necessarily because of anything you've done or anything that you didn't do or something you've done wrong. It might just be that wherever you're applying, whatever you're looking for, they just don't have it. And so that is, I would tell you this, and I'm sure you've heard it 1,000 times, be persistent. And I got very fortunate with that. I got very lucky in finding a place that needed somebody. And I'm telling you, if I had applied a week later, I wouldn't have been there. It was just it was a perfectly timed moment. So I'll get back to you in a second. I know you had something.
So I know the way the Cubs have it set up on their radio flagship is that, say if Pat Hughes has to miss a game, the pregame and postgame host Judd Surratt,
yeah.
He'll fill in for Pat.
Right.
Have you ever had to do that for like Ed Farmer
Yes.
or John Rooney? Okay.
Yeah, I did a. Here's a funny story. I've done since 2008. I've done, maybe 15 games. It's not a lot, but whether it's DJ out or Farmio, or Steve Stone was out for a while too when he was doing radio. I did a couple of those. And one funny story from last year. I've never done a TV game, and Hawk was sick. He had, I don't know. I think it was gross.
Sick of the White Sox.
No, I think he had he had an old man problem, one of those. He was sick, and he couldn't be there. He didn't tell them until like 6:15 or 6:20. Game's at 7. So I'm on at 6:35. And we're all on the same level, the broadcast level. There are 7 booths. There's sound booth, visiting TV, visiting home TV, visiting radio, scorekeeper, whatever. The PA's on that level too. So it's like 6:15, 6:20, and he lets them know, I got to go home, I can't do this game. So they needed somebody. I'm typically in a booth right down at the end of the hall. And I would say that I'm there 95% of home games. 95. And this one time I wasn't. I was at the Comcast Fundamentals deck, which is in left field. You guys know what that is? Like if you're ever there at the fan deck, we broadcast out there a couple of times a year because Comcast pays for it. So I'm not in the booth. They come down looking for me. Hey, need you to do a TV game. I'm not there. They don't know where I'm at. Team doesn't know, so I didn't get to do it. But I was this close. The time I almost did it.
So when you started your show, you started actually like 7 or 8 seconds early. And did someone come into that?
We're right on the dot. So,
Well,
we are on real time. When you hear it, you want me to talk to them? When we are in real time. But when you are listening to it, you're getting it. Depends on what depends on if you're listening on an HD radio, if you're listening online, or if you're listening just in your car. Your delay could be between 8 and I think it's like 35, 40 seconds. Yeah. There has to be a delay now because people will say things they're not supposed to and then will lose money because the FCC wants to take it.
What do you do in the off season?
You know what's really funny? That is my least favorite question in the whole world. Every time I talk to someone, I'm going to tell you, but every time I see one, and it's the worst when it's one of my friends too, who will say, so what do you do in the off season? Dude, I've known you for 15 years, you know what I do. I work at the station still. I do updates a couple of days a week, so if you guys ever listen to The Score, how many of you listen to The Score? If you guys want to get into sports broadcasting, at least listen to the station once in a while.
Do you broadcast from the studio or from the...
When they are on the road, we are in the studio here, unless they've sold a remote, like at a bar. If Miller Lite sponsors something and we're at, I don't know, Cork and Kerry or whatever.
Otherwise, you're at the cell?
Otherwise, yeah, so
How's
all the home
studios
games.
at the cell?
It's a broadcast booth. I get a broadcast booth. It's nice. It's a nice setup. And if for some reason we're squeezed, like they've got, I don't know, the Angels bring their Spanish broadcast, then I might get kicked out and I'll have to go to a different booth. But it's a pretty good setup.
Is there certain information that maybe the team won't allow you guys to release, or?
It doesn't happen much. Sometimes it's kind of rare. Like sometimes they'll tell us something is going to happen, or you're talking like the organization or players.
Organization, player, both.
It does, but it's not. It doesn't happen that much. It happens more with players. I have a relationship with some guys, and I know stuff that I probably shouldn't, and I will never talk about it because I'm not supposed to know it. You know, it's just, you have to be careful with that. You know, and if somebody tells you, they tell you off the record, hey, this is a thing that happened, and this is for you and nobody else, you can't go back and say, here, look what I found out, because then, you know, that's it. There's a, yeah, you burn that bridge, that's it. And there's a, you know, there's a journalism, there's a bit of journalism integrity you have to have. I mean, you can't, if somebody tells you something, you can't, and they say, listen, I'm about to tell you this thing, and this is, unless it's a crime or something, and you probably have to report it to the police, but if they tell you a thing, you can't go running, you just can't. I mean, that's no, because nobody will, because if people found out that you did that, not just that person, but if other people, other players, they'll never tell you anything. You'll never know anything. Like, I know what you did to that guy, I'm not telling you anything.